kind request that His Excellency will then join Linus Kaikai on stage to have a brief conversation. Linus, over to you.
Thank you very much, and Your Excellency President William Ruto. Our conversation will come quite broadly from the remarks you have made, and I've picked something that you've said about your mandate to transition the country to a desired urban future. And there's something you've pointed out there as a standing problem, and that is a problem of existing planning gaps. And you said, I can quote you, Mr. President, that yours is to convert the urban areas to be spaces where authorities can provide services and the residents of those areas can receive those services. I think, Mr. President, you are talking to a very serious problem if you look at, for example, the city of Nairobi, whose last planning is said broadly to be dependent on what the colonial authorities left. On the planning element, Mr. President, what are your immediate interventions?
First, let me contextualize this. As I said in my statement, Kenya is urbanizing at the rate of between 4.4 and 5%, the highest, one of the highest globally. The future is urban. 68% overpopulation by the year 2050 will be living in urban settlements. So this is not a problem that is going away. This is a challenge that is growing. That's number one. That's the context. Let me contextualize even further. We have, as I said, 1,411 slum dwellings in Kenya, the largest being in the city of Nairobi and in many of our cities. So when we talk about slums, many people cannot figure it. They think we are talking about Nairobi or some other obscure place. We have slum dwellings, including in Naivasha, right here. We have it in many towns. So the challenge of urbanization is with us. The challenge of informal settlements is with us. Appreciating that problem is actually big steps in sorting it out. It is part of the reason that we thought through this problem, and that is why housing is one of the programs that informs my administration's agenda. And it is because it starts with what you have said. We have not appreciated the planning aspects. And because we have not appreciated the planning aspects, that is why we are unable to plan for goods, for services in our urban centers. And what is going on is that because it's unplanned, because there's no program, you end up with informal settlements. So the moment you address yourself to this challenge, the moment you start to plan how you're going to build your cities, how you're going to provide for housing, then it informs where the markets are, where the schools will be, how mobility will be planned, where, what kind of categories will be built where. So the planning element rolls in, because you cannot run the housing plan without first having a proper plan. So PS Hinga and CS Njeru will tell you that is what we are grappling with. And it starts with digitizing land records, which is an exercise that is going on in earnest. We have committed a lot of resources in that direction, ensuring that we understand what parcels are where, who owns them, so that we can plan for it efficiently. And with the whole subject of housing. It is not, as I said, it's not just about housing, because many people, when they think about it, many people are asking me, Mr. President, who told you we need houses? You know, this is the question that people keep asking me. But you know, the same people are asking.
There's actually one that asked, Nani hana kwao?
So, you know, so many people hana kwao. In fact, you know, the people living in slums, they have nowhere. It is not their choice to live in a place where there is no toilet, where there is no water, where there is no access to electricity, there is no access to nothing. It is not a choice for somebody to live in that kind of settlement. And as a result of this, many people at the same time, while they tell me, who told you we will need houses, they tell me our kids don't have jobs. And many people cannot connect the dot between housing and jobs. Housing and the housing products that create jobs. They do not get a relationship, they cannot connect the dot between housing and electricians and masons and carpenters and engineers and quantity surveyors and architects and all that. So it is our responsibility as government to assist fellow citizens to connect the dots and to understand that housing delivers dignity to the people living in informal settlements, creates jobs for our young people, creates jobs in our industries, gives opportunity for all of us to live in an organized society, and most importantly, many of our counties today, including Siaya, where Orengo comes from, a lot of agricultural land is being subdivided for settlement, when in the flip side, we should be using those agricultural lands for food production. And what happens is that we end up with a competition between food and settlement. And the reason why we have a big debate today in Kenya about the cost of living, because only 14% of Kenya is arable, has opportunity for us to grow our food. That's why we are imagining Galana. That's why we are imagining other areas, because we have limited land for agricultural production. So this whole exercise about housing speaks to more things than a mere four walls that makes a house.
Your Excellency, I just want to follow up on what you've said about agricultural land, which is being lost to settlements. And I would like to hear your thoughts on how you intend to fix that, because you've expressed your concern a couple of times. At one time, you spoke about the 50 by 100s that are basically reducing land to unproductive standards. How do you intend to fix that in this urban strategy?
You know, the reason why you find people in Mlolongo, now they have gone beyond Mlolongo, they have gone beyond Gitengela. Now they are approaching Isinya. Lengu keeps telling me, you know, what is going on, Mr. President? You know, we are losing, we have nowhere to graze our cows. It is because people don't have opportunity. People cannot have no access. The land in Nairobi, you cannot afford, you know. Every house is, I think we did an analysis, I think Hinga can tell you, we did an analysis on average. The cheapest house in Nairobi was about 11 million. Now, because of affordable housing, we are bringing it from 11 million to between 600,000 and $1 million. That means the fellow going to Isinya has no reason to go to Isinya anymore. Whatever he's looking for in Isinya, he can find it in the middle of Nairobi. That's what affordable housing does. So once we have created an incentive for somebody not to go and look for 50 by 100, because the reason why they are going to look for 50 by 100 is because they cannot find a house that they can afford. And that is why we are talking about affordable housing. So that instead of subdividing agricultural land, we create incentives for people to buy affordable houses which sorts out the problem they are trying to sort out by going to subdivide agricultural land. So we are flipping it, you know. Don't blame the people who are going to support, to subdivide agricultural land. It is because there is opportunity. But we want to decimate that opportunity by making sure that there is a house that is affordable. You don't have to subdivide agricultural land. Take, for example, where you come from. That's beautiful agricultural land. But with time, you will see subdivision. Many of the ranches are now being subdivided to be owned by individuals. We must be careful, because this subdivision of ranches into individual titles is eventually going to subdivide this land and make it unusable for agricultural or even pastoral activity. So we need to deal with that challenge, and to answer directly your question, we are providing alternative so that it is no longer tenable, it is no longer attractive to go to Kitengela, because you can find the same thing in the city, where it is easier to get to your work, where there are other settlements, where you have access to water, you have access to transport, you have access to a market, you have access to school, you have access to a hospital. And even for government, it is a lot easier to deliver government service in a place where it is planned, and we can keep all settlements in one place. It is easier to deliver water, it is easier to deliver transport, it is easier to deliver all services, rather than stretching every service to people living in different parts of our country.
Thanks, Your Excellency. You speak of incentives, and I would like to hear, at a policy front, where is the interface with the counties? Because you mentioned land that is being lost that used to be agricultural going to settlements. And I have in mind Kiambu County, which once used to be the bastion of coffee farming, and now it is a game park of flats. What are those incentives? And at the policy front, what is the conversation going to be like between your government, the national government, and those in the counties?
By the way, if there is one place the counties and the national government have a convergence of action and ideas and a concurrence of agreement, it is on housing. Every county that I can remember, every county have actually identified a place for us to do affordable housing, because they see the opportunity to provide for housing for their citizens, to create jobs for their counties, to create industry for their counties. Kiambu, you have mentioned, Governor Wamatangi is here. We've had many conversations with Governor Wamatangi. In fact, Governor Wamatangi is among the counties that have given us the most number of plots for us to do affordable housing, because they see the opportunity. And they also see the danger of land fragmentation and the subdivision of agricultural land for settlement. They appreciate, they see it, and that is why they are working with us on affordable housing. So on this particular subject, I think the national government and the counties are aligned.
And where there'll be shortfalls, if, for example, county government doesn't have land to give, will there be the option of acquiring that land? And how do you intend to address the concerns that compensation for land, especially on huge government projects, giving the SGR as an example, is sometimes too costly? If the SGR alone could do the upwards of 30 billion just in compensation of land, you can imagine how much affordable housing may cost before the project even takes off.
The good news, however, Linus, the good news here is that either by default or by design, we have a lot of national government or county land that is available. That's the good news. And secondly, we have worked with the counties, and many of the counties are willing to engage with people who own land in their counties so that that land can be made available. And for your information, in some of the instances, we do not even have to buy the land, even if we don't have it. What we do is we enter into a partnership with owners of land so that we develop the locals' housing, and it is shared between the owners of the land and us as government who are developing. So we create a win-win where government comes up with the plans, we put in the infrastructure, we put in the sewer system, the roads, the electricity, the water, into a private person's land, and we share the outcome of the development. So since it's a win-win engagement, we do not necessarily run into the challenge you have mentioned. But speaking to the subject of land compensation, I have taken the position that we spend a colossal amount of money. Today, we have a pending bill of 50 billion Kenya shillings on land compensation, which to me is unjustified. And unfortunately, many of these values were arrived at through means that are not correct. There is an incestuous, forgive the word, relationship between those who value the land, those who award the grants, and finally the people who pay. You know, and that is why I have said that we are going to change the law so that National Land Commission will do the compensation, they will identify the land, but it will be valued by the Ministry of Lands. I know the National Land Commission is uncomfortable. I think they have said they will go to court, which is okay. But I will not allow the National Land Commission to continue on this spending spree. I know, for example, that there are people who have stepped forward to say, even for land that was worth 1 million shillings, characters went and told them, why don't we make it 2 million shillings so that we can share the money? You see, how can I preside over that kind of nonsense? I will not. I will not allow that to go on. You know, I have a responsibility to the people of Kenya to make sure that their money is spent appropriately and they get value for money.
Thank you, Excellency. And I would like us to keep on the thread of accounting for every penny. And the concerns when it comes to your affordable housing plan has been about the governance of the fund. Because you're dealing with a country and a background that has a scandalous past. People still remember of the NSSF days and how money was lost in housing schemes that never took off. How do you intend, Your Excellency, to make this different, to make every coin that people are going to contribute to the affordable housing scheme to be accounted for?
It is justified that in the past we have not used public resources, and the era of NSSF housing comes to the mind of many Kenyans. It is also true that we have a housing problem. It is also true that we have an employment problem. It is also true that by engaging in housing, we have the possibility of not just sorting out the housing problem, the unemployment problem, and the manufacturing problem. Are we going to walk away from our program in housing, which has the potential to sort out our slum problem, to sort out our manufacturing problem, to sort out our unemployment problem, because we are scared that governance might run into trouble? It is our responsibility to sort out the governance. We must not allow governance to stand in the way of the huge opportunity that we have to transform our country. And it is our responsibility. And I have said that I am willing to look Kenyans in the eye and to say the buck stops with me, and I will answer for it.
Thank you, Excellency. Just two more areas to cover because our time is running out. And one is the trust deficit that emerges in this conversation around the housing strategy. How do you intend to plug that? Just for ordinary people, like the gentleman asking, kila mtu akuna kwao. How do you intend to win that and to build and win that trust?
I think where this conversation is today, Linus, it is very different from where it started. I hear now many people saying, yes, we need to consider, because they've come to understand the relationship between our housing plan and jobs for their children, and opportunity for them to for manufacturing, the opportunity for us to improve on our slum dwellings and provide dignity for Kenyans who today live in conditions that are subhuman, if I may say that. So many people are beginning to appreciate. Initially, many people were wondering, what are these houses about? But the more Kenyans realize that this is about the employment of our children, and we have 800,000 young people getting out of college, school, university every year, then they begin to appreciate that if this is going to sort out our unemployment challenge, if this is going to bring back our manufacturing as a percentage of GDP, then this is an important program. Let me also tell you, Linus, that even as we do that, there is also a lot of deceit and propaganda, you know, and politics. I must say, sometimes, well, politics, whatever it is, because all of us agree. I have never come across one leader who does not agree that housing will sort out our problem. All our manifestos on both sides of the political formation had housing. Today, one side of the divide have changed their mind about housing. It is not because they have a different conviction, but it's because they want to play politics. I think as a nation, there must be a fine line between what we can play politics with and what we can do together as a country. And finally, the media. Huh?
Tell me, Your Excellency.
The media has spun huge propaganda. Oh, I don't know what. Oh, I don't know what. Sometimes we try to understand that the media supported a different candidate and their candidate lost. But surely they should move on. I mean, the election is over. And you know, we are a democracy. Nobody is going to be held. I mean, it would be foolhardy for anybody to think that everybody is going to support you. It's not possible. And you know, in a democracy, people make choices. We are a democracy. If everybody should support the candidate of their choice. But once the election is over, surely, we should be gentlemen. We should be democratic to say, okay, I supported a different candidate, but since this character won, I don't like him very much. But because it is democracy, let us support what is positive, what is good for the country, and oppose when it is necessary. I have no issue.
I'm not sure, Your Excellency, whether questions about affordable housing have taken political party lines. We've seen questions from people who come from all regions, including regions that voted for you, Your Excellency. And just in the accountability question where the media normally comes in, and we've seen articles in papers and commentaries in television and all that, all pointing at how that money will be accounted for. Mr. President, the country is scarred by NSSF. And the question that is being asked is, how do you ensure your affordable housing program does not create new billionaires that NSSF created in yesteryears?
I have told you with clarity that Parliament is going to discuss the housing levy fund and how it's going to be managed. The board, the oversight board, will be representative of both government and the private sector. We're going to ensure that there is a proper, accountable mechanism. I know very well, as a politician, that if something goes wrong, I will be held to account politically, right? So I must make sure that nothing goes wrong. And I am decisive. I am intentional about making sure that we hold the trust of the people of Kenya by making sure that they get value for all their resources. So, the same way we are being held to account, the same way we have oversight bodies making sure that we spend public resources appropriately, we are going to make sure that this fund, like all other funds, are held in a manner that is accountable to the people of Kenya, by making sure that we have an oversight board, by making sure that it is run professionally. In the board, for example, we are going to make sure that we have pension funds on board, we have Federation of Kenya Employers on board, we have representatives of public servants on board, we have representatives of trade unions on board, we have government in its broader sense involved, we have counties also involved in the board to make sure that this fund is accountable. And I like the discourse we are having, because the discourse we are having is telling us what the people of Kenya expect. And it is not wrong for the people of Kenya to expect us to be held to the highest account that is possible. That is possible. That is the right thing to do. That is legitimate, and we must do it.
Mr. President, if we could quickly just clarify the space of the affordable housing program by your government, and also other schemes that existed before your program came into space. And on the 29th of June last year, when you launched your manifesto ahead of the election, you spoke of pushing mortgages from 10,000 to about 1 million through existing banks and other schemes. Do you still have your eyes on that, or everything is now going to affordable housing in the government? Yeah.
We are firmly on it. In fact, I think you maybe you didn't get our program right. Our intention, which still stands, was we have close to 30,000 mortgages, not 10,000, about 30,000 mortgages. It is our intention to move mortgages to between 1 million and 2 million under our program. It is the same program. It was not about existing programs, because in any case, existing programs then only generated 1% of affordable housing. All the other 90-something% were houses that could not be, many Kenyans could not afford. That's why they were getting out of town. The affordable housing is going to be the avenue for us to increase our mortgages from 30,000 to 1 million, by God's grace, to 2 million.
Thank you, President. Our last question, so that we allow you to move to your next engagement. I would like to finish up on the Kenya Urban Forum, the first one, this being the first one. And in your speech, you spoke about harmonization of laws and the various policies that are governing the urban space. And P.S. Hinga did mention about kicking the can down the road. And on the street, Mr. President, we are told as a country, we are a country of good plans that then end up in the shelves. And one of such good plans is the National Urban Development Policy of 2016, which is still waiting to be implemented. What pledge do you make as the first forum gets underway, that plans will get off the shelves and to be implemented on the ground?
When we developed the urban plan in 2016, it was in readiness for our plan on affordable housing, which was our big part of our Big Four plan, right? And it is the reason I had a very big problem with the handshake and the BBI story. It was the reason, because that whole conundrum destroyed the plan we had on housing. That is why housing was suspended, so that we could carry out the BBI shenanigans, right? So, and it is the reason why the policy was shelved, because there was no time to implement it. We were busy with these BBI stories. And it is the reason why I have, in all earnest, began the program of affordable housing. Some decisions that are not necessarily convenient have to be made. They are the right decisions, they are legitimate, they may not be convenient, they may not be popular, but they have to be made for us to move the country forward. I am determined to make sure that we make these decisions, including the policy on urbanization. That is why I have a big push on the housing levy, the housing fund, the housing program, which is a program that is 5 years behind schedule. This was to be a program that we should have rolled out in 2018, but we didn't, because there are some difficult decisions to be made. I am willing to make those difficult decisions because many people tell me, oh, you should think about your second term. My second term will be meaningless if my first term achieves nothing. You know, I am not here so that I can have a second term. I am here because I want to make a difference. Kenyans have given me an opportunity to make a difference in their lives, to make sure that we remove slums, to make sure we create jobs for our young people, to make sure that we improve on our manufacturing. I am focused on that. Second term will sort itself out.
Thank you. And we end it here, Your Excellency, and I want to thank you very much for this engagement. This conversation, Your Excellency, continues, and we thank you, all of us in the audience who have followed this conversation.